What's up, everybody? Wes Hodkowitz here. Forgot to clear my throat. Joined alongside my colleague at Packers.com, Mike Spofford, for another edition of Packers Preview, brought to you by Microsoft Copilot, the Green Bay Packers, and Dallas Cowboys. Week 4 action, Sunday Night Football, 7:20 p.m. Central start time on NBC. What do we got here, Michael? What you got? Oh, I got my name on my coffee cup. Thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And as soon as I get done speaking, I'll be drinking some of that because I need to clear my throat. Mike and I will be here for the next 10 to 15 minutes on the Packers social channels. That is X, Facebook, and YouTube. You can submit your questions to us. I will throw them off of this sharp man and see what he has to say about them. But before we get into those questions, sharp man with a Sharpie. Before we get into those questions, the Green Bay Packers and Dallas Cowboys both gave out their injury reports before we headed in here. Pretty straightforward with the Cowboys. Pretty much everything we already knew. Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, both of those guys are good to go. They'll have their corners available in this one. They will be without CeeDee Lamb and also Tyler Booker, their rookie first-round pick, the guard. For the Green Bay Packers, questionable is Javon Bullard as he works through the concussion protocol. But I'll tell you this, Mike, for how scary that was on Sunday, what a blessing that is to see Javon out there. Again, we'll see what his status is for Sunday, but being able to practice both on Thursday and Friday in a limited capacity. Aaron Banks, the Packers starting left guard, is doubtful for this one. We also know that both Zach Tom and what was presumed to be his replacement at right tackle, Anthony Belton, are both out for this game. Belton sustaining an ankle injury in practice on Wednesday. Matt LaFleur said on Friday morning he does not anticipate it being long-term, but he was obviously not out there today. Before we take questions, Mike, a lot of questions for the Green Bay Packers and their offensive line. How all these dominoes are going to fall, certainly next man up really applies here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the Packers are dealing with it always seems to happen that way, right? Where you get injuries and then they all kind of happen in the same position group. And so, you're left scrambling a little bit. But my best guess, assuming that Aaron Banks does not play because he's listed as doubtful, most likely I would see Jordan Morgan starting at left guard, where he's played a fair number of snaps the last couple of weeks, and then Darian Kinnard becomes the right tackle with Anthony Belton unavailable to back up Zach Tom. So Kinnard, a player acquired by Brian Gutekunst right at the end of training camp. Packers traded a future late-round draft choice to get him, and as of right now, it's a good thing he's here because he's going to be potentially be called upon to start under the lights in Dallas.
I wrote this in Insider Inbox, which when we get done with this, you'll go back and edit. But one thing that's been really interesting in the Brian Gutekunst era as GM, the Packers have had this almost yearly sort of development of adding a veteran offensive lineman, a versatile offensive lineman, sometimes late in the process, that ends up paying big dividends for them. When you think back to Jared Valdir, when you think back to Dennis Kelly, Byron Bell, his Gutekunst's first year as GM, brought him in. Mm-hmm. And actually last year they sort of did it with Andre Dillard, but they never needed Andre.
Yeah.
There was only one guy that really went down the whole season. It was Jordan Morgan right from the get-go until you got to the playoffs. They pretty much had the same starting lineup the entire year. So in this particular case, Darian Kinnard, obviously proving to be a worthwhile investment for the Green Bay Packers. All right, we will turn it over to you, the fans, and we will start with questions on YouTube. This is actually more of a statement from Evan Nelson. A little Friday afternoon Packers preview session with Mike and Wes before I cut the grass and grill a couple New York strips.
Wow.
Let's go. That sounds like a Mike Spofford evening if I've ever heard of one.
Actually, I got my yard mowed earlier this week.
Did you?
So
Mine is not. That's a bye week thing for me.
I got that out of the way, but yeah.
Let's see how that goes. All right, let's go over to X here. Number one Packer fan, what the heck do we do on the offensive line? You kind of outlined it already. I think the other thing that's going to be very interesting for Green Bay is we saw Brant Banks, the undrafted rookie from Rice, I believe is where he finished his college career, also played, I believe it was Nebraska. He got signed to the active roster this week. Donovan Jennings, who was on the Packers practice squad all of last season and then made the 53. Those are your next men up now.
Yeah.
They did say Banks is doubtful, so potentially you could still keep him active if you wanted to. and then have the extra guy. You need 8 offensive linemen active on game day to get the 48 players.
Right.
And Green Bay also could go the practice squad route in terms of elevating somebody, but I think it's Tyler Cooper. I'm trying to remember who all is available for them on the practice squad side of things as far as filling out their game day 48.
Yeah, I mean, so far we've seen Donovan Jennings. He's been a game day inactive thus far on the 53, but hasn't been active for game day. He almost certainly will be active for this one. And then, as you mentioned, Brant Banks, the other Banks on the offensive line, he has been signed to the active roster from the practice squad. So those are your next 2. But yes, as far as how they go about having 8 offensive linemen, if that's what they want to do in order to have 48 players active on game day, we'll see if Aaron Banks indeed is active just for that reason. That may create a bit of a stir 90 minutes before kickoff, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to start. So we'll have to wait and see there.
Yeah, the Packers practice squad, by the way, was Dalton Cooper. Tyler Cooper, I believe, was with the Packers in the offseason.
Yes.
Now it's Dalton Cooper, who they added once the season started. He's a tackle out of Oklahoma State, is on the practice squad. And then Lecitus Smith came back this week. Lecitus has been with Green Bay, I want to say at least 3 times now in various different iterations. Spent time last year, I think it was with New England, maybe also Cincinnati, but a guy that does have experience too in the scheme if Green Bay would need to go that direction. All right, Alex Parker on Facebook. What are your thoughts on Matthew Golden's development through the first 3 weeks of the NFL season?
Well, you have to like what you see, right? And you're just hoping to see more, week by week. As has been a big topic of discussion in various forums this week, that ball down the sideline in Cleveland in the fourth quarter, he was just, a little bit of body lean or plant the foot, whatever the case might be, from maybe turning that into a 96-yard touchdown. And then we're talking about, Matthew Golden being the breakout player. That breakout game is coming for Golden. It could happen as soon as this Sunday, particularly with how much Dallas's defense is struggling, especially with regard to giving up the big play in the passing game. So we'll see. But it's not a matter of if Matthew Golden is going to break out at some point during this rookie season. It's just a question of when.
Yeah, and I will also mention, to kind of give a little bit more context to that comment about Dallas's defense, one of the things I found really interesting when I was kind of working on that Matthew Golden story last night that ran this morning on Packers.com, you can check that out, was the fact that Dallas has given up 6 plays of 40-plus yards through the air through 3 games. No other NFL team has more than 3. It kind of gives you an idea of what they're struggling with as Matt Eberflus takes over that defense. Obviously, a huge shift at the beginning of the season. Micah Parsons is gone now. And I'm sure when Eberflus took the job, he thought one way or another they were going to figure that out. And that was going to be the cornerstone of his defense.
No doubt.
And by proxy, it was really interesting, too, listening to Kenny Clark, now Packers' former defensive tackle, mention the parallels between both Hafley's scheme and Eberflus's. In Kenny's situation, he felt like that helped him transition over. He's currently leading them in pressures this season, also has a sack. But then you would think the other end of that is it probably helped with Micah Parsons coming over here. So seeing how those two things shuffle out and what that chess match is like is going to be really fascinating to watch. But right now, heading into this game, the Cowboys 32nd ranked in the NFL in pass defense. Yeah,
they're struggling. They're struggling to get pressure on quarterbacks, and they only have 4 sacks as a team through 3 games. Now, Jadeveon Clowney is in the mix and is getting ramped up and everything. I think we're going to see quite a bit of him. But the most glaring number other than the 6 40-plus yard gains that the Cowboys have given up defensively so far this year is that opposing quarterbacks have a 125 passer rating through 3 games. That's not good, and that's something that they're going to be looking to fix. And up against Jordan Love and the way he's been playing, other than the one bad play against Cleveland last week, I think Jordan Love is primed to potentially have a big game here.
Mike Spofford, Wes Hodkowitz, Packers Preview brought to you by Microsoft Copilot. We are here previewing the Green Bay Packers Dallas Cowboys this Sunday night, 7:20 p.m. Central Start Time, a game that can be viewed on NBC. If you have questions, submit those to X, Facebook, YouTube, and we will answer them for you, or answer some of them for you. Sydney on Facebook. Can we get some clarification on Christian Watson's contract extension? It seems the Packers have seen everything they should have to see, or has he showcased a different level of ability in practice versus what we've seen in games? Well, I'm glad you asked that, Sydney, because there's a bunch of levels to this. This is the fourth game that the Packers, with all these PUP and IR guys,
Right.
they could not practice, they could not do anything football related because they were put on the regular season, either PUP, like in Christian Watson's case, or injured reserve with the designation to return in terms of Marshawn Lloyd and also Jacob Monk, the Packers' 5th-round pick from last year, their interior offensive lineman. So the real question for all this happens after the bye week. But as you wrote about, and actually something we talked about last week, when you look at Christian Watson, him coming back to the field, he wanted some security, but he also wanted to keep his head clear. And rather than having to try to play catch-up and earn a contract, a lucrative contract this offseason, him and the Packers found something that worked out for both sides. And I think I've said this to you, I don't know if I did it on camera or not, but in a lot of ways it almost reminded me of when the Packers did the 5th-year pseudo option on Jordan Love, where they didn't actually officially tag him with the 5th-year option because there's so many things that go into that now, guaranteed money because of injury.
Right.
They found something that worked for both sides. It kind of feels like this is the same situation with Christian.
Yeah, it feels like it's like a de facto 5th-year option, but it's not officially that because Watson was a 2nd-round draft pick and those are only available for 1st-round draft picks. But essentially, that's kind of how they went about it and how they structured it. And it's smart for both sides in the sense that the Packers believe in Christian Watson, and this is an opportunity to have him for at least one more season at what really is theoretically going to be a bargain price in 2026 relative to where the rest of the wide receiver market is. And in Watson's case, as you just alluded to, he doesn't have to be trying to come back from a major injury and a major surgery and then trying to earn his big contract right now. He will have an opportunity to earn that in 2026, looking ahead to 2027, because he'll still be under contract here with the Packers. And I mean, with where things are in the wide receiver market, I mean, if Christian Watson if he's able to stay healthy the rest of this year and next year and does what he's capable of, he's looking at a very, very lucrative payday.
And still in the prime of his career, and obviously I think
No
we'll be
doubt.
at the 26, 27-year age range when that happens. Okay, on YouTube, this question is from Joe. It's a good one. I think it's the one you'll kind of get a kick out of. What would give you more confidence going forward with the team? The Packers get the W on Sunday, but only by a game-winning field goal, or the Browns keeping the Lions under 100 yards combined on the ground?
That's interesting. I guess I just consider this such a week-to-week league. I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen when Cleveland plays Detroit. Cleveland has to go into Detroit as opposed to the Packers having gone to Cleveland in terms of trying to compare. And I know it's back-to-back weeks and whatnot, but to me, this is all about Green Bay getting to 3-1 at the bye week. You're going to have to play 13 regular season games without a break when you come back from the bye. The difference between being 3-1 at the bye and 2-2 at the bye just kind of feels enormous right now. And this is all about the Packers going down to Dallas, getting a win, getting to their week off in good shape, feeling good about where they are in what is shaping up to be an incredibly crowded and competitive NFC from top to bottom.
All right. I'll get you another question here, Michael. This one is from Alex on Facebook. It's more of a statement, but it's true. It will be weird watching Kenny Clark line up on the other side.
No doubt.
Obviously, I wrote this this week, and it was actually even before we had the conference call with Kenny yesterday. All these years, 6-7 years of Kenny Clark and Elton Jenkins practicing against each other. That matchup now finally plays out in an actual NFL game. And it was so great listening to Kenny. It's too bad you couldn't have been in there with me. Obviously, in kudos to not only Kenny, but also the Cowboys public relations staff, their communications department, setting that up, that he was able to talk with Green Bay reporters. And he said it was a whirlwind. There were so many different things that went into it. His family, he mentioned, Mama Clark was a little hot at first, but credit to Kenny, the kid that he always is. I mean, he kind of explained it to his mom, his sisters, his brothers, like, this is the way this business goes. He's like, your time comes, whether you're cut, you're traded, what have you. Fortunately for him, and he thanks the Packers for this. He was really happy that he ended up in Dallas. He really likes the organization. Said Jerry Jones came and introduced himself. He's had a great relationship with everybody there so far. And I think the one thing I said, I remember tweeting this after the dust settled on the trade, was that if nothing else comes out of this, and hopefully for the Green Bay Packers it's a Super Bowl championship, but for Kenny's sake, I really hope that this allows the national media and a bigger, wider audience to get to know him and see what this guy brings on the football field. Hopefully it's not too destructive on Sunday, but I've often felt like he is one of the more underrated players in the National Football League. 3-time Pro Bowler. The league respects him.
Right.
But in 9 years, Mike, I probably can count on 2 hands how many All-Pro votes he's gotten. Just seems media-wise, national pundits-wise, he's always kind of flown under the radar.
Yeah, and I think, and we'll see what happens moving forward for him, because he's certainly not done playing yet, even though he's in year 10 in the NFL right now. But when you talk about being underrated, when you come along as a first-round draft pick at defensive tackle, when Aaron Donald is winning multiple NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards, it's like nobody else can really measure up to that guy, right? I agree with you that for a guy who's been named to the Pro Bowl 3 times in his career, Kenny Clark is still not really a household name, around the NFL in terms of general fans of the league and the national media and whatnot. And but as far as how he's thought of around here in Green Bay, not just by us, but by his coaches and his former teammates and everything like that. I mean, Kenny Clark is a dynamite dude, and he did a lot for this organization.
I've been talking to Mike Daniels about this a number of years ago, former Packers Pro Bowl defensive tackle. And
another one, yeah.
Another guy, but to Mike's credit, he's always very outspoken and boisterous. There is, it's something about that defensive tackle position. Guys typically are a little bit more quiet. Chris Jones, not as much. But, a lot of those guys are pretty quiet, too. It's I brought it up now because I was thinking about this when the Pro Football Hall of Fame announced its 128 modern era nominees for the Hall of Fame class of 2026.
Okay.
Do you know who the first-time nominees were on that list? I included among them Geno Atkins from Cincinnati and Jarrell Casey from the Tennessee Titans.
Okay, wow, yeah.
I didn't realize both of those guys had already been out for 5 years.
Yeah, that they've been gone for 5 years.
In a lot of ways, carried themselves the same exact way that Kenny does. Just put their head down, did the work. But unfortunately, you end up missing some of these guys' careers, especially when they're in those smaller markets. We got more questions. But it's just something to be said. It was great to see Kenny, though. Obviously good to see him doing well. And we'll see how that matchup plays out on Sunday. Will probably be one of the big catalysts to this game.
It's going to be
Elton Jenkins versus Kenny Clark, 5 Pro Bowls between them.
No doubt.
Okay, Eric from Facebook. Would Bullard likely out? Questionable, but I understand the sentiment just based on the scale, the concussion and whatnot. But let's say he is out.
Okay.
Do we expect the 3 QBs to be out, the 3 CBs, excuse me, that's Hobbs, Valentine, and Nixon, to be out there a lot? I mean, I would assume that's your base defense.
Yeah.
I would think. Or your nickel base.
Essentially, yeah. Your primary nickel is going to be those 3 guys at cornerback. And in that alignment, I would think most of the time then Hobbs would be your slot guy. But
you played a little bit last
in
week
that
too.
In that respect. So that's probably the direction they go if Bullard is not able to clear concussion protocol.
Jamie Hamilton on YouTube. How much would a dominant win mean going into the bye week? I mean, that's the biggest thing. You and I have always said this, and the Packers, fortunately, have been very lucky with this over the years, going back to the Mike McCarthy era. They've won a lot of games going into the bye. You want to be able to have that good taste in your mouth. Certainly, beating Detroit, beating Washington, and then slipping to 2-2 going into the break would not be good. They've dealt with a lot, and I always joke about this. It's not a funny topic, but it is interesting how this always works out, just given the nature of the National Football League. Bye weeks never seem to come at a bad time. And the Packers are really banged up on the offensive line right now.
Yeah,
could use that extra week. But certainly, picking up a win and keeping the win streak in Dallas going, getting some more positive momentum, an NFC win, would it have some big ramifications as well? Packers got to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, this is about not totally undoing that 2-0 start that you got off to at home against the Lions and the Commanders, 2 teams that were in the playoffs last year, 2 teams that are both 2-1 right now, with their only loss being to the Packers. If you go down to Dallas and lose and you fall to 2-2 here that you've kind of wiped away a lot of the good that 2-0 start did for you. It feels like it, was partly wiped away a little bit by how you let the game in Cleveland get away. But if you bounce back and you get the win in Dallas and you get to 3-1 at the bye week and then get yourself healthy for this upcoming long stretch of games, you have to feel pretty good about where the Packers would be sitting, but you've got to get this win on Sunday.
A couple more minutes here. Mike Spofford, Wes Hockwitz, Packers Preview, brought to you by Microsoft Copilot. We appreciate you guys joining us. This one is quickly from Gigs2400. These names, man.
Hey, screen names.
Unless this is yours, I'll just read it. Any updates or news on Marshawn Lloyd? Okay, because again, getting back to what I said about Watson, the IR guys, all of them, they first can start practicing after this game. Certainly Green Bay, I don't know how they're going to handle next week with the bye, if they will practice one day or not. With how banged up they are, I could see them not doing that.
Yeah.
But we're just going to have to wait and see. When Lloyd first went down, they said it was a big injury, but they didn't expect it to be a season ender. Obviously, if they felt that way, he wouldn't have been designated to return. You only get 8 of those spots.
Right.
By the time we get around past the bye, it'll be about 2 months since I believe, was the injury this time, was it groin or hamstring? Groin, yeah. So
it was on that catch he made on the sideline in Indianapolis in the preseason game. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll find out when he gets back.
Yeah, I mean, with anybody who gets activated, whether being brought back from injured reserve, being activated off PUP, there's this whole 21-day window thing where the player can be entered into practice, but they don't count on the 53-man roster. But then that 21-day clock starts. And so if the Packers are not practicing during the bye week, or even if they're only practicing one time, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to activate somebody's 21-day clock if they're not going to get a full week of practice in, where you can potentially maximize in terms of ramping a guy up to then get him ready to be put on the active roster and be able to play in games. So I'm not expecting, could always be wrong, but I'm not expecting any of these roster type decisions to be made until the Packers come back from the bye.
I agree with that. Okay, Jim on Facebook, Jim Hanna from Sydney, Australia. Thanks for joining us, Jim. Why is Josh Jacobs not having his usual impact this season? I feel like there's been so much upside with Josh and Matthew Golden.
Yeah, it's been a tough one for the Packers running game, no doubt about that. Now, what we saw in week 1 against the Lions was the Lions played single high safety, they loaded the box, and they said, okay, Jordan Love, try to beat us. Well, what happened? In the first half, Josh Jacobs had 6 carries for 8 yards. Jordan Love had 160-some yards, 140-something passer rating, and 2 touchdowns. Yep. And guess what? The Packers were in complete control of the game. And then Josh Jacobs in the second half against the Lions pounded out 13 carries for 58 yards. And, it was like, all right, that was the passing game essentially opening things up for the running game. Week 2 didn't necessarily go that way. I thought the running game was a little bit more consistent. Jacobs got 84 yards, I believe it was, against Washington. Took him, 22, 23 carries, something like that. Wasn't hugely productive, but yet I thought the running game production was more consistent. Last week against Cleveland felt like it needed to be the same formula as the Detroit game. The difference was Jordan Love wasn't protected well enough to push the ball down the field, make the Browns pay in the passing game to then open things up for Jacobs in the running game. So the whole day on the ground was just a tough slog for Josh Jacobs, 16 carries for 30 yards. So there's this give and take constantly going on, right? I think teams right now, because Christian Watson and Jaden Reed are not out there, Matthew Golden hasn't really come into his own yet. I think defenses are more afraid of Josh Jacobs than they are of the Packers passing game right now. So if you come out and you can have a first half throwing the ball and protecting your quarterback like you did against Detroit, then I think that's what will open things up for Josh Jacobs, and hopefully that's what happens on Sunday night in Dallas.
Last 2 questions. The first one has a 3-parter, though. This is from your friend and mine, Doris Pringle. Number 1. Would Mr. Spofford be willing to tip an imaginary cowboy hat to us, the viewers? There we go. Number 2, Well, actually, let's do 3 first, then I'll do number 2. Is that an Emmy in the background for one of Mr. Spofford's Path to the Playoff videos? Which I think it is, right?
It's no. Well, it is an Emmy.
It depends.
Right. It does depend. It is not for a Path to the Playoffs video.
I think it's for the Leroy Butler documentary.
That's right.
Or in
The Hall of Fame show. Yeah, the Hall of Fame show.
This one, we'll wrap on this one. Well, I got one more, but then this is the end of the Doris Pringle questions. Thank you, Doris. How has Hobb looked so far this season? I think Hobbs looked really good. It's just
I think he's
a
looked
matter
good
of
too. Yeah.
Getting the knee behind him. But this guy plays with an impact, man. He played with an impact in training camp.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought there was a suddenness that was back with him in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think it's getting there. Right. I agree with you. There's he plays with an edge, man, and with him getting back closer to full health now and being a full participant in practice and everything like that, I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see more of those, highlight reel type of plays, whether it's a tackle, whether it's a PBU. That type of game is coming from Nate Hobbs because when he was healthy in training camp, we saw something every single day.
This one is from Facebook. Ellie Culvers, heiress to Culver's Restaurants, 41. Let's go, Ellie. All right, 41. I'll wrap. This is going to be kind of my key to the victory game, but I really like this question. Is this game more important for Green Bay or Dallas at this point of the season?
That is an interesting question.
That's a toughie.
Yeah, I mean
I think it's for Green Bay, but Dallas has a ton on the line too.
Yeah, I mean if you're the Cowboys, you don't want to fall to 1-3, right? Especially when the Philadelphia Eagles are sitting there at 3-0 and possibly headed to 4-0 this week. I mean, I think there's a lot on the line for both of these teams. Like I said, for me, looking at it from the Packers' perspective, it's you started out 2-0 with 2 really, really big home wins. Yep. You don't want to just undo that and sort of feel like you're back to starting over when you come back after the bye. You want to put yourself in a better position. From Dallas's perspective, I mean, they've got a lot of stuff to figure out on defense, but that offense with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb won't be out there, but Dak Prescott usually has his best games at home. Yep. The wild card game from a couple years ago notwithstanding, but Dak Prescott usually plays pretty well in his home building, and the Packers defense has got to be ready for that.
That's why it's imperative, too, for the Packers to turn Prescott over, get some extra opportunities, earn those extra opportunities. But I will say this, the Packers want to win this thing. They got to get to 3-1. They have huge aspirations for this season.
Yeah.
But if Dallas would happen to lose, and it's Micah Parsons coming back into AT&T Stadium, depending on how he performs, and then they go to 1-3, it would be really interested to see exactly what that response is going to look like next week.
Yeah.
Packers' perspective, though, you got to get to 3-1. You're at 2-0. Got so close to 3-0 last week.
Yeah,
See
right
if they
there.
get back in the win column now at AT&T Stadium. A stadium, as you mentioned, has been extremely welcoming to them over the last 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
Mike Spofford, Wes Hodkiewicz, Packers Preview brought to you by Microsoft Copilot. We thank you guys, as always, for joining us. Appreciate all the questions. Stay tuned to Packers.com and the Packers mobile app. Tons of content still coming through on there. Mike wrote a nice little piece about Micah Parsons, kind of how he's looking at this matchup, heading back to Dallas, the place that was his NFL home for his first 4 seasons, first 4 Pro Bowl seasons as well. As I've talked a little bit about the relationship and friendship and now competitive rivalry between Kenny Clark, Elton Jenkins, also a piece on Matthew Golden, looking to take advantage of some of those big plays. Mike's One Last Look column also will be up on Packers.com tomorrow morning. But until next time, for Mike Spofford, I'm Wes Hodkiewicz. We'll see you later.